Gentlemen rise.
You ask unanimous consent to speak out of order.
Without objection. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, on the 7th of October of 2001, when we invaded Afghanistan, a soldier's then 10-year-old child in 5th grade is now 18. And either out of the house, off to college, or starting a young adulthood of his or her own, having grown up virtually without the benefit of military parents, some of whom today face their 5th deployment. Today marks the 2,950th day of combat in the war in Afghanistan. 2,950 days without asking for a concurrent sacrifice from the American people. It is only the uniformed forces and their families upon whom we have placed the burden of these 2,950 days of war. The Congressional Research Service estimates that we have now spent or committed $300 billion, and that's only the money for which we can account. Some will say it is twice that, for this war, like the war in Afghanistan, was funded off budget with no transparency. $300 billion. That's about $101 million per day for 2,950 days. Or to put it another average, that is $3,947 per family of 4 every American family has paid to date. And tragically, that's the good news, because the irrevocable loss comprised of 911 American combatants killed and 4,198 seriously wounded, and we do not have the ability to estimate the long-term wounds that we cannot see or quantify that will be carried by the soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines of this conflict for the rest of their lives. We have now been in Afghanistan for 2,950 days. We fought World War I for 584 days. We have been in Afghanistan 5 times longer than we fought the war to end all wars. And we've been in Afghanistan twice as long as the entire combined combatant days of World War II, fought by the greatest generation. Today is the 2,950th day of this war. It has cost us $300 billion. $3,947 per American family. Enough is enough. It is time to bring our troops home. More than any other issue that I have studied, sought counsel on, and drawn from my own life's experience for guidance since becoming a member of the United States Congress, the expansion of the war in Afghanistan has drawn my late-night focus. There, in the quiet of the office, I have arrived at the inevitable conclusion that the deployment of additional troops in Afghanistan and the continuation of this conflict is both not in the interest of our nation and, in fact, is on a par with a potential error the size of our initial invasion in Iraq. The recent election in Afghanistan has underscored the fact that we will never create a Jeffersonian democracy in that nation. After Hamid Karzai had about 1/3 of his ballots thrown out due to election fraud, his opponent withdrew from the coming runoff election because he stated publicly there could not be a scenario under which he could trust the election process. A continued escalation of this conflict to do things like secure elections and build an Afghan national identity is a false and foolish waste of American lives and treasure. Quite simply, we will never create a Jeffersonian democracy, and to continue to fight and die for what the people of Afghanistan will not fight and die for is simply wrong. Our military should not be expended to secure elections. nor should we continue to engage in global nation building. To those who would say that we must win in Afghanistan, I simply ask, after 24 years of service in the United States military and a degree from the United States War College, what does a victory look like? And when can we obtain this indefinable goal? Are we now to subordinate ourselves to an Afghan government that has at best limited legitimacy in its own nation, following a travesty of an election that has only recently was determined to be the #1 priority for securing this stated by our on-scene and on-the-ground commander?
The gentleman's time has expired.
Madam Speaker, there is much more to be said about this, and it will be said. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back.